Mrs. Ramos lived on an unremarkable cul-de-sac in the sort of suburb that brags about being boring. She owned a golden retriever named Pickles, a litter box-loathing cat named Madam Whiskerson, three betta fish, Leonard, Nimoy, and Leonard II, because her nephew got confused at the pet store, and 19 houseplants she referred to collectively as the Lushes. When her sister finally scheduled their long-delayed cruise to Bermuda, Mrs. Ramos put a desperate plea on the neighborhood message board. Need pet sitter 1 week, must be comfortable with dogs, cats, fish, and foliage, good with watering schedules. 4 minutes later, a user with the screen name starcare_beta replied, I have extensive experience with fauna and flora. References include multi-system nurseries and zoos. Your domicile will receive 5-star care. Mrs. Ramos, who had once trusted a teenager who forgot to feed Pickles for 48 hours, decided that anyone confident enough to use the phrase domicile was worth a shot. She left a key under the frog statue, taped a feeding chart on the fridge, and flew off to Bermuda, believing the universe had heard her prayers. The universe had heard, yes, but it mispronounced a few words on the way. Glorfnax of the planet Ublorp was 4 light-years from home, armed with a clip-on bow tie, a universal translator set to cheerful, and an intergalactic cultural exchange pamphlet titled Pet Sitting on Primitive Worlds, a Gig Economy Opportunity. For an Ublorpian, Glorfnax was the equivalent of a Bright Army graduate student. He had aced interspecies symbiosis, but he'd skimmed over the elective Earth mammalian behavior because the professor's monotone droning threatened to lull him into hibernation. He hovered curbside outside Mrs. Ramos's beige 2-story at precisely 700, observing the decor through bulbous quadruple eyelids. Wind chimes, a flamingo stuck in the garden, a ceramic hedgehog. Quaint. Mission simple, Glorfnax muttered, consulting his pamphlet. Humans possess companion organisms, provide sustenance, recreation, and emotional stimulation. Avoid law enforcement. He adjusted his bow tie, toggled his translator to witty but soothing, and unlocked the door. Inside, Pickles bounded across the tiles, tail describing figure eights. Madam Whiskerson arched her back, hissed, and fled. 3 betta fish drifted in their partitioned aquarium, blowing indifferent bubbles. The Lushes listed under ceiling fans, soil politely parched. Glorfnax greeted them with a 5-finger salute and pressed the translator. Salutations, cohabitants. I am Glorfnax, temporary steward. Let us amplify your wellness. Pickles tilted his head. He did not know what a steward was. He only knew he had just enough time to fetch his saliva-streaked tennis ball before impending boredom. He dropped the ball at the alien's feet. Glorfnax consulted the pamphlet's diagram. A dog held a stick in its mouth while a human hurled it toward a sunlit horizon. The caption read, Fit kinetic engagement. Excellent, he thought. He flicked the ball into the dining room and waited. Pickles disappeared after it. Success. Item 2, felines. He skimmed the page. Cats may exhibit aloofness, provide respectful distance, nutritional needs, and objects for scratching. Simple. Item 3, fish. Here, Glorfnax frowned. The pamphlet listed observation only, no direct handling. But in Ublorpian aquariums, fish were lively triple jumpers that chase magnetic rings for cardio. Surely Earthfish wanted the same, even if humans didn't know it yet. Finally, he studied houseplants. The pamphlet was confusingly blank. The editors apparently hadn't considered plants as pets. Glorfnax found that bigoted. On Ublorp, flora were highly mobile, some even freelancing as graphic designers. The absence of instructions meant freedom for innovation. He clapped all 3 hands together. Right, he announced to the empty living room. We shall execute a modern enrichment regimen. Day 1 morning. Glorfnax located Pickles' leash, but could not fathom its precise purpose. The accompanying harness had 37 unrelated straps. He improvised by looping the leash around a potted monstera. If the leash was designed for walking a companion, and plants were indeed companions, then walking the plants would demonstrate excellent initiative. He dragged the monstera onto the porch with gentle persuasion. The pot bumped down each step like a short marble rolling down a xylophone. At the sidewalk, he took a celebratory selfie, monstera stationed beside him, leash taut, and beamed it to the Ublopian Student Forum with the caption, First Earthling recreational stroll. Neighbors watering lawns watched, slack-jawed, as Glorfnax paraded down the block towing a leafy prisoner. Mrs. Gerhardt, who kept her headphones fixed on true crime podcasts, assumed she was witnessing a body disposal and dialed 911. Luckily, Glorfnax returned home before patrol cars circled, and Mrs. Gerhardt decided she must have hallucinated the bow-tied octopus man because she'd skipped breakfast. Afternoon, time to address the fish. Glorfnax unscrewed the aquarium lid. Leonard Nimoy and Leonard two-eyed him like mild accountants suspicious of a surprise audit. He set 3 bottle caps on the counter as makeshift fetching discs. "Warm up," he proclaimed, flinging a cap across the tank's surface. It skidded, plunked, and sank. The fish stared. Perhaps they required demonstration. Glorfnax reprogrammed his left arm into fin mode. A new Blorpian elbow can mimic almost anything cushioned by cartilage, and dove it into the water, scooping the cap. Water sloshed onto recipe books. He dropped the cap again, a foot away. "Retrieve!" Leonard blinked. Nimoy drifted. Leonard, too, floated upside down in what Glorfnax optimistically interpreted as a readiness crouch. Positive reinforcement, he recalled from the pamphlet. He fetched a jar of fish flakes, sprinkled them like confetti, and whooped. Fish thrashed happily. Excellent. Evening. Madam Whiskerson had barricaded herself behind the washing machine. According to internet results, he'd typed, "Cats, how make friendship?" Felines valued independence. Glorfnax slid a saucer of milk into the laundry nook and read aloud from a volume of human poetry to prove he was a man of culture. "Shall I compare thee to a summer's—" Pause. He consulted translator synonyms. "Thermonuclear star cycle." The cat answered with silence. Day 2. Glorfnax awoke to Pickles' wet snout bouncing against his thoracic membrane. The tennis ball thudded onto his chest. Fetch again? The canine's devotion to a meaningless object disturbed him. Still, duty called. But first, plant calisthenics. He lined 9 of the lushes, mostly succulents, beside the back fence, set the sprinkler to gentle rainfall, and blew a whistle. Plants do not move quickly, so Glorfnax did the jumping jacks for them, counting in Esperanto because it sounded athletic. The plants, unsurprisingly, did not grow abs, but he sensed their moral support. For enrichment, he introduced show and tell. Each plant presented something Glorfnax thought it would enjoy: sun lamps, fertilizer smoothies, or uplifting podcasts about resilience. The spider plant got really into an episode on time management. Meanwhile, fish training advanced. Glorfnax 3D printed, don't ask from where. An Ublorpian always travels with emergency goo, a tiny plastic hoop that floated. He demonstrated swimming through, tossing flakes each successful attempt. Leonard Chu, the previously topsy-turvy one, finally powered through, perhaps motivated by the fact that it hadn't mastered up from down yet. "Splendid!" Glorfnax squealed, marking the moment with celebratory bubble noises via translator. Pickles barked from the doorway, jealous. So the alien set a second hoop in the bathtub, filled it 6 inches, and persuaded Pickles to belly crawl through for biscuits. Cross-species synergy. He logged it for extra credit. Day 3. By now, the neighborhood grapevine swayed with rumors. "I'm telling you," whispered Mrs. Gerhardt to the mail carrier, "he was teaching a fern to heal." The mail carrier shrugged. That family's always been weird. At sunrise, Glorfnax drafted his master plan. By week's end, every dependent organism under his protection would perform at least one previously unimagined skill. Objective A. Fish fetch from outside the tank. Step 1. Acclimate them to brief aerial exposure. He purchased a decorative castle ornament from the pet store, explaining to the clerk that he wanted his fish to develop a sense of real estate ambition. He installed a tiny slide. Fish swam up, rolled down into water. Flap of gills, enormous applause. Objective B. Madam Whiskerson would accept being read bedtime stories without retreating. He borrowed the Grapes of Wrath from the shelf, got through 2 pages before the cat slashed the dust jacket, but in Glorfnax's culture, a scratch is a signature of truce. Progress! Objective C. The lushes would complete a marathon. He mapped a route from foyer to patio, 12 meters, and acquired office chairs with wheels to serve as mobile planters. The spider plant as team captain wore a sweatband cut from an old sock. Day 4 complications. The doorbell rang. On the stoop stood Mr. Dodson, HOA president, with a clipboard and a frown sharp enough to circumcise a gnat. "Good morning," said Glorfnax, teeth set to maximum friendliness. "Morning, we've had reports, walked, plants, screaming at fish. Residents are concerned." Glorfnax consulted the pamphlet's appendix, dealing with authority figures. One bullet point. Humans respect certifications. So he produced a laminated card he'd printed the night before that read, Universal Pet Technician License, 42 AAMM, expires always. Mr. Dodson squinted. "This looks cosmically fake." Glorfnax improvised. "Sir, would you deny Earth's cherished companions the benefits of progressive enrichment science? We're talking about bridging interphylum divides." Mr. Dodson backed off a step. The word phylum frightened him. He'd barely passed 10th grade biology. "As long as the place is tidy when the owner returns," he muttered. He retreated, vowing to Google interphylum after lunch. Crisis averted. Glorfnax returned to the aquarium to find Leonard II performing barrel rolls. He took that as readiness. He produced a miniature foam ball, size of a pea, draped a net over the counter, and blew a whistle. Fish shot forward, nipped the ball, spat it into the net. "Fetch!" Granted, the throw portion was metaphoric, but as Glorfnax reasoned, velocity is relative. He whooped so loudly, Madame Whiskerson dashed into the open, hair electrified, then pretended she meant to be there, dignified. Outside, he continued the plant marathon training. Using bungee cords and roller skates for larger pots, he formed a Congo line of greenery. Pickles trotted alongside as morale officer. The UPS driver took a photo, posted it on TikTok, and within 2 hours, walking houseplants trended. But since nobody knew the address, it remained an urban legend titled Photoshop, probably. Day 5 Fish Fetch League expanded. Each fish had a color-coded foam ball. Leonard favored yellow, Nimoy green, Leonard 2 polka dot. Spectators Pickles, Madame Whiskerson from a dignified windowsill, and half the philodendrons cheered, or in their case rustled. Glorfnax decided the time had come for cross-training. He perched Pickles on a dining chair, balanced a potted aloe on the dog's head, plant's core strongly rooted, dog's patience moderate. Meanwhile, the fish practiced silent counting in binary, flashing fins as ones and zeros. He documented everything on the Ublorpian student forum. Upvotes skyrocketed. However, Earth equipment began to protest. The vacuum cleaner clogged with potting soil, bathtub tile eroded slightly from saltwater overflow, the couch sprouted moss, an unplanned but aesthetically pleasing side effect. Glorfnax scheduled a thorough restoration session for day 7. The cruise ship called. Mrs. Ramos left a voicemail. "Cruise is wonderful, just checking everything okay?" Glorfnax, unfamiliar with human phone etiquette, texted back a slideshow. Fish mid-fet, cat wearing a paperback as a sash, Pickles and downward dog, and a selfie with the entire plant marathon team. Caption, "All systems optimal." Mrs. Ramos took Valium and ordered another pina colada, choosing optimism. Meanwhile, the Lushes completed their first full indoor marathon. Glorfnax led with a kazoo, plants rolled in office chairs, Pickles brought up the rear dragging a water jug for hydration pit stops. They took 12 laps around the living room. The spider plant claimed victory when its chair crossed a strip of duct tape. Madame Whiskerson, annoyed by the commotion, leapt onto the piano and pounded a discordant chord. Glorfnax mistook it for encore, so he restarted the cazoose. Day 7, return day. The house looked like a jungle gym designed by Dr. Seuss. Glorfnax initiated Operation D-Chaos. He vacuumed, dusted, and repotted shady casualties of the marathon. He convinced the fish to help by nudging fallen pebbles into a dustpan. They were rewarded with artisanal brine shrimp. Pickles fetched lost items, remote controls, a missing sock, 2 paperbacks with teeth imprints. The dog's sense of purpose radiated like a small sun. Madam Whiskerson watched from a bookshelf, apparently judging. Then, either inspired or annoyed, she began batting stray foam balls off the counter directly toward the fish net. Fish fetched them back, making it the first recorded feline piscine volleyball match in human history. Glorfinax dabbed a tear. Interphylum divides, crumbling. He polished the floors until they shimmered, combed Pickles, brushed the cat under protest, and lined the lushes in their original spots with military precision. The Monstera looked fitter, leaves a hue darker from its daily cardio. Moments before Mrs. Ramos's taxi pulled in, Glorfinax realized residual evidence threatened his evaluation. The fish hoop still floated like a neon admission of experimental sports. He removed it, dried it with a hairdryer, and hid it in a cereal box. He stood at attention in the foyer. Mrs. Ramos unlocked the door. Pickles sprinted, tail helicoptering, pulling her sideways into the umbrella stand. She laughed. "Someone missed me." Madam Whiskerson strolled up, sniffed her shoes, and, astonishingly, allowed a head scratch before sauntering off with a dignified chirrup. Mrs. Ramos lifted suspicious eyebrows. The cat's usual greeting was spitting like a broken radiator. She inspected the living room. Everything appeared orderly, maybe a bit shinier. Were those plants more upright? The Monstera's pot bore scuff marks around its rim. Strange. She wandered to the aquarium. 3 betta fish zipped around with military discipline. Beside the tank sat a line of tiny foam balls, each fish matching a color. She looked at Glorfinax. "Enrichment tools," he explained. "Cognitive stimulation fosters longevity." She nodded, impressed. "I read that once in Reader's Digest." A final sweep. No dead plants. Dog looked jubilant, cat tolerant, fish perky. The air carried a faint scent of eucalyptus and unspecific adrenaline. She handed Glorfinax an envelope. "You've done an incredible job. The neighbors usually complain about everything, but I didn't get a single text." Down the street, Mrs. Gerhardt peeked through blinds as if trying to memorize a crime scene profile she could never quite solidify. The walking fern remained a question mark in her mind forever. Glorfinax bowed. "Your companions were exemplary students. Their potential is vast." "Students?" Mrs. Ramos chuckled. "Well, whatever you did, keep doing that line of work." He promised he would, pocketed the envelope, and tottered outside, mission complete. The taxi taking Mrs. Ramos's sister home passed him, but nobody gave him a second glance. The bow tie made him look eccentrically human. Post-mission subject, Glorfinax University evaluator. Professor Exevelyn subject. Glorfinax University evaluator. Professor Exevelyn subject. Glorfinax University evaluator. Professor Exevelyn Glorfinax reports successful 1-week terrestrial pet stewardship. Notable achievements: 1. Canine Pickles. Improved fetch retrieval time by 62%. Introduced amphibious hoop drills. Partial mastery of mindfulness yoga poses. 2. Feline Madam Whiskerson now tolerates reading of mid-20th century American literature, Steinbeck especially. 3. Ichthytic Trio. Learn to fetch colored objects, perform binary counting, and assist in household tidying. 4. Flora Cohort. The lushes completed indoor marathon exhibit increased chlorophyll density. Potential for future photosynthetic athletics league. Collateral anomalies minimal. Couch moss growth suggests unexpected symbiosis. Homeowner accepted it as charming boho vibe. Conclusion: grade equals AA materials in Captain for potential HOA infiltration. Recommendation: for cross-phylum community building. Recommendation: publish paper Kinetic Enrichment Models for Non-Ambulatory Vegetation and Freshwater Fish. Glorfinax signed the debrief with flourish and added a personal note: Earth pets are brimming with unrecognized ambition. With proper guidance, their capabilities exceed even the most flamboyant of expectations. Also, their snacks are delicious. Secure import license. His academic future assured, Glorfinax uploaded one last video to the student forum. Pickles and the spider plant racing side by side down the hallway while Leonard 2 lobbed a polka dot ball over the tank rim. Madam Whiskerson leaping mid-air to spike it back. The caption read, "Fetch is a state of mind."